Victoria, a 30-year-old single woman, spent her days hawking oranges in the bustling city market. Her youthful glow, despite her simple attire, often turned heads. One sunny afternoon, she noticed a sleek car pull up by her stand. A man named Kelvin in a tailored suit stepped out. Kelvin is a wealthy businessman and philanthropist, known across the city for his success and generosity. He smiled warmly, buying a bag of oranges. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, leaving an unforgettable impression on both of them. Days turned into weeks, and Kelvin frequently visited the market, each time buying oranges and making conversation. It was evident that he was captivated by Victoria's humility and strength. One day, he boldly asked her out on a date. Victoria was hesitant at first, but later agreed, and their love story began. Against all odds, their whirlwind romance led to marriage, and Victoria left her hawking days behind to embrace a new life filled with love and comfort. A few years into their marriage, Victoria and Kelvin had welcomed their first child, a boy they named John. His arrival brought unexplainable joy into their lives, and Kelvin declared that they would celebrate John's first birthday in grand style. "Everyone in Lagos will know how blessed we are," he told Victoria with excitement. She couldn't agree more, diving into the preparation with zeal. Kelvin ensured no expense was spared, renting a lavish hall, inviting friends, family, and business associates. Victoria marveled at how her life had changed, feeling deeply blessed. John became the light of her world, and as she held him close, she prayed silently for his health and happiness. The day of John's birthday arrived, and the event was a display of luxury. Guests streamed in, dressed in their finest attire. Among them were two elderly women dressed in strange red and black regalia. Victoria was immediately unsettled by their presence, but Kelvin quickly intervened, warmly welcoming them. "They are my special guests," he whispered, brushing off her concern. The celebration went on without any issue. John was showered with gifts and attention, while Victoria basked in the glow of a perfect family moment. Yet, deep down, she couldn't shake the unease she felt around the two mysterious women, who remained quietly observant throughout the event. Later that night, as Victoria and John slept soundly, Kelvin crept out of bed, dressed in a black and red outfit that matched the woman's attire. He carried John to a hidden room in the house, a room Victoria didn't know existed. There he performed a ritual, chanting incantations and offering John as a sacrifice. "Let my wealth multiply, and may I always win over my competitors," Kelvin said. Thunder cracked outside, signaling that his offering had been accepted. When he returned John to the nursery, he lay beside Victoria, pretending nothing had happened. He slept peacefully, knowing that he would wake up a wealthier man. The following morning, Victoria woke up to a mother's worst nightmare. John wasn't breathing. Panicking and scared, she screamed for Kelvin, who played his part well, acting shocked and concerned. Together, they rushed John to the hospital, but the doctor pronounced him dead on arrival. Victoria was inconsolable. Her world shattered as she held her lifeless son in her arms. "Why me? Why my son?" she sobbed. Kelvin comforted her, masking his guilt with a sorrowful face. While Victoria mourned, Kelvin celebrated secretly in the fruits of his sacrifice as his wealth began to grow exponentially. Victoria's grief consumed her. For weeks, she couldn't eat, sleep, or find joy in anything. John's room remained untouched, painful reminder of what she had lost. She spent her days crying and questioning why fate had been so cruel. Kelvin, on the other hand, seemed to move on quickly. He returned to his business ventures, his wealth multiplying, and his travels becoming more frequent. The obvious difference between their emotions created a rift in their marriage. Victoria felt abandoned, left to mourn alone, while her husband thrived in the aftermath of their son's death. She found herself spiraling into despair, unable to reconcile the love she once felt for Kelvin with his cold indifference. 2 years passed, and Victoria began to heal. Though John's absence left a permanent void, but she started to rediscover herself. She attended family gatherings, made new friends, and tried to reclaim her life. Kelvin, noticing her renewed spirit, saw an opportunity to tighten his grip. One night, as they prepared for bed, Kelvin casually mentioned the dangers of people using discarded pads for evil purposes. Victoria, I've heard horrifying stories about people using women's used pads for dark rituals. Promise me you'll let me handle disposing of yours from now on. I want to protect you, he said. Victoria, trusting her husband, agreed without question. Little did she know, Kelvin had devised another sinister plan, one that would keep her trapped in his web of deceit. The following week, Victoria handed her used pads to Kelvin as promised. That night, he retreated to his secret room, clutching them in his hands as he performed another ritual. Great spirits, I offer this in exchange for prosperity. Let my wealth know no bounds, he chanted. Thunder struck outside, signaling success. Kelvin continued this ritual for years, his business empire expanding beyond his wildest dreams. Meanwhile, Victoria's life took a turn for the worse. Despite numerous attempts, she couldn't conceive again. Each failed attempt deepened her pain, and she became a shadow of her former self. As Kelvin's riches grew, Victoria's struggles intensified. She became increasingly despondent, yearning for another child to fill the void John had left behind. What's the point of wealth without an heir? She often whispered to herself. Kelvin, however, showed no concern. He dismissed her longing for another child, assuring her that their wealth was enough to sustain them. Victoria couldn't understand his lack of interest, but she was too broken to fight. Her days blurred into a cycle of tears and silent prayers for a miracle. After years of despair, Victoria missed her period 1 month. She dared to hope. Her heart was pounding as she asked herself some unanswered questions. She took a pregnancy test, only for it to come back negative. Determined to be sure, she visited the clinic, but the results were the same. Confused and disheartened, she shared the news with Kelvin, who reacted with unexpected anger. "What do you mean you missed your period?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Victoria was taken surprised by his reaction. "Why are you so upset? The doctor said there's nothing wrong," she replied. Kelvin stormed off, leaving her more puzzled than ever. Kelvin went straight into his secret room, his mind racing. Kneeling before the altar, he pleaded with the spirits. Please, forgive me. My wife has withheld the offering unintentionally. Take her if you must, but spare me, he begged. Sweat dripped down his face as he waited for the familiar thunder that signaled the spirit's acceptance. But this time, the silence was deafening. Kelvin's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the magnitude of what had happened. Panic consumed him, and his once impenetrable confidence began to crumble. That night, he saw shadows moving in the corners of the room and heard whispers that weren't there. Kelvin's torment grew unbearable. Haunted by guilt and visions of John, became erratic, his behavior increasingly alarming to Victoria. One night, unable to bear the weight of his actions, he confessed. Victoria, I have done terrible things, he said, trembling. Victoria listened in horror as he revealed the rituals, the sacrifices, and his unrelenting greed. Her world shattered as she realized the man she loved had been living a double life. You killed our son? She screamed, tears streaming down her face. Kelvin fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness, but Victoria was inconsolable. Kelvin's health began to deteriorate rapidly. His once robust body became frail, and he was plagued by nightmares. The spirits he had once served now turned against him, tormenting him relentlessly. He saw John in his dreams, crying out for his mother. Victoria watched as Kelvin withered away, torn between anger and pity. Despite everything, she cared for him in his final days, unable to completely abandon the man she once loved. This is your punishment, she whispered. Her voice was heavy with sorrow. Kelvin's life came to a tragic end. He died alone in the secret room, clutching a piece of John's blanket. Victoria found him there, his face frozen in terror. As the police investigated, they uncovered the extent of his dark dealings. The room was filled with artifacts and items that revealed the full scope of his evil practices. Victoria felt a mix of relief and devastation. The man who had caused her so much pain was gone, but the scars he left behind remained. She resolved to rebuild her life, vowing never to let his darkness consume her again. Victoria moved out of the house that had become a symbol of her suffering. She started afresh, finding solace in her family and faith. Slowly, she began to rediscover her strength and independence. She took up a job at a local bakery, where she found joy in the simple act of creating. I will rise from this, she told herself. Her resilience inspired those around her, and she became a beacon of hope for others who had faced loss and betrayal. Years passed, and Victoria's life took on a new rhythm. She met Richard, a kind-hearted teacher who brought light back into her life. Their connection was immediate, built on trust and mutual respect. Richard adored Victoria and admired her strength. He didn't try to replace her past, but embraced it, understanding the woman she had become because of it. Together, they began to dream of a future filled with love and laughter. Victoria and Richard's relationship flourished. He proposed on a beautiful afternoon, presenting her with a simple yet meaningful ring. "Victoria, will you let me be part of your journey and help you write a new chapter?" he asked. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she said yes. For the first time in years, Victoria felt truly happy. She realized that despite the pain she had endured, life had given her another chance at happiness. Shortly after their wedding, Victoria discovered she was pregnant. This time, the news brought unbridled joy rather than fear. She and Richard celebrated, their hearts full of hope. As the pregnancy progressed, Victoria reflected on her journey. "This child is a gift, a symbol of resilience and the power of starting over," she said, holding Richard's hand. Victoria visited John's grave. She brought flowers and spoke softly. "You will always be in my heart, my sweet boy. Thank you for being my angel and guiding me through the darkest times." As she left the graveyard, she felt a sense of peace. It was as if John had given her his blessing to move forward. Victoria gave birth to a healthy baby girl, whom they named Hope. Her arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, joy, and the promise of a brighter future. Looking at her daughter, Victoria whispered, "You are my light, my hope, and my reason to keep going." She knew that while her journey had been filled with pain, it had also led her to this moment, a life filled with love and possibility. In the comment section, let us know what you think about this story. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.